Long before lighthouses guarded the coast, before ships mapped the northern seas, people living along Scotland's shores believed someone was watching them from the waves. Not monsters, not spirits, but beings who lived two lives, seals in the ocean, and humans on land. They fell in love, they married mortals, and sometimes they vanished forever into the sea. Tonight, we meet the Selkies. Welcome to timeless Europe, where history breathes through legend, and ancient stories still whisper across wind and water. Along the coasts of northern Scotland, the islands of Orkney and Shetland, and the fjords of Norway, fishermen told stories unlike any others in Europe. Stories not of fear, but of longing. They spoke of beings who crossed the boundary between worlds, creatures neither fully human nor entirely animal. The Selkies, seal people of the northern seas. Tonight, we journey into one of Europe's most beautiful and haunting myths, a legend of love, loss, transformation, and the eternal call of the ocean. To understand the Selkies, we must first understand the land that created them. Northern Scotland is a place shaped by wind and isolation. The Orkney Islands sit where the North Sea meets the Atlantic. Winter arrives early, storms rise suddenly, and the ocean dominates every aspect of life. Fishing was survival, but the sea was unpredictable. It gave food, and it took lives. Entire communities depended on waters they could never control. Families watched loved ones disappear beneath the waves, and when grief seeks meaning, stories are born. Islanders began noticing seals watching them from the rocks. Unlike fish or birds, seals seemed intelligent. They followed boats, they watched humans quietly, and their eyes appeared almost human. Soon, people began asking, what if they were human? What if they once walked among us? The earliest Selkie stories were shared orally, passed beside fires during long winter nights. Fishermen claimed that on certain moonlit evenings, seals gathered on remote beaches. And then, something impossible happened. The seals shed their skins. Where animals once lay, people stood, men and women with dark hair, pale skin, and ocean-colored eyes. They danced on the sand. They laughed like humans long freed from sorrow. But before sunrise, they returned to the water, pulling their sealskins back over their bodies. The rule was clear. A Selkie without its skin could not return to the sea. And this detail would shape the most famous Selkie stories ever told. Many legends begin the same way. A lonely fisherman discovers a Selkie woman dancing on the shore. Mesmerized by her beauty, he hides her sealskin. When dawn arrives, she cannot return to the ocean. Trapped on land, she becomes his wife. In many stories, she lives peacefully for years. She raises children. She learns human customs. She even smiles. But always, she looks toward the sea, always listening for the waves, because a Selkie never forgets where it belongs. One day, the hidden skin is found, sometimes by accident, sometimes by a child. And without anger or hesitation, the Selkie returns to the ocean, leaving her family behind, not from a lack of love, but because the sea calls stronger than anything on land. These stories weren't told as horror. They were tragedies. They were reflections of sailors' wives waiting for husbands who never returned. The Selkie became a symbol of unavoidable loss. The legends also spoke of Selkie men, handsome strangers appearing during storms. They arrived when women felt lonely or abandoned. Gentle, kind, and mysterious, they stayed briefly, offering comfort and passion, then vanished with the tide. Some traditions claimed women could call Selkie men by shedding 7 tears into the sea. The ocean answered loneliness with companionship. These stories reveal emotional truths about isolated coastal life. Love arrived suddenly and disappeared just as quickly. Across the North Sea, Norway shared similar legends. Norse sailors described seal spirits capable of transformation. Unlike the more violent Viking myths, Selkie stories felt quiet and intimate. They focused on relationships rather than battles. This suggests ancient, shared beliefs among northern seafaring cultures. The sea connected nations, and so did their stories. Selkies represented humanity's bond with nature, not domination, but coexistence. What makes Selkies unique among European myths is their humanity. They are not villains, not gods, not monsters. They struggle with identity. The land offers warmth, family, and stability. The sea offers freedom and truth. Selkies live between belonging and longing, a feeling that is deeply human. The myth speaks to anyone who has ever felt torn between two homes, two lives, or two versions of themselves. Scholars interpret Selkie legends in many ways, as grief mythology to explain drowned sailors, as marriage symbolism reflecting the fear of losing loved ones, or as migration stories about people forced to leave their homes. The Selkie becomes a universal metaphor for transformation, for love that cannot cage another soul, and for the understanding that true love sometimes means letting go. Even today, island residents share strange experiences, seals approaching humans without fear, figures seen walking into the ocean at dusk, voices heard near empty shores. Most dismiss these as imagination, yet the stories persist, because legends survive where emotion remains true, and along these northern coasts, the sea still feels alive. The Selkie myth endures because it speaks softly. Unlike dragons or monsters, it doesn't frighten. It comforts. It reminds us that we belong to nature, not separate from it. We too transform throughout our lives. We too leave places we love, and sometimes part of us always longs to return. Night falls across Scotland's shores. Waves move beneath the moonlight. Seals gather quietly on distant rocks. Perhaps they are only animals, or perhaps among them stand beings waiting for the moment they may walk again as human, listening, remembering, watching the land they once called home. Thank you for journeying through legend with Timeless Europe. If you enjoy exploring Europe's deepest myths, forgotten histories, and timeless mysteries, subscribe and continue the journey. Because somewhere between land and sea, between memory and myth, the Selkies still swim.